Her daughter-in-law erased her from the baby shower timeline like she was already gone. Elaine Thatcher didn't argue. She documented. By the next sunrise, Brittany's name was stripped from the deed, the trust, and the future. 30 years of silence had built a fortress. Today, she locked the gate. They called her the help, the extra, the leftover. But when the sheriff arrived, only one name was on the title, and it wasn't theirs. Wait, before we go any further, I gotta ask, where are you watching from? Drop it in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe. The backyard looked like a Pinterest board had exploded. Pink and cream streamers looped through the branches of the oak trees. Balloons floated above every table, anchored by mason jars filled with lemon slices and baby's breath. The folding chairs were new, Brittany had insisted, and so was the flower arch positioned perfectly in front of Elaine's stone garden wall. Elaine moved quietly between the tables, a glass pitcher of lemonade balanced in her hand, careful not to overfill any cups. She wore her softest flats, the ones that didn't bite after standing too long. The sun was warm, but she tied a cardigan around her waist just in case the breeze picked up. "Elaine, can you shift that umbrella a little to the left?" Brittany called from her perch near the center table. She was in a floral maxi dress and wedge heels, her manicured hand waving like a pageant queen. Elaine didn't reply. She just adjusted the umbrella until the shadow fell evenly across the gift table. Brittany didn't say thank you. She just turned back to her crowd. It was mostly her friendswomen in designer sunglasses, with filtered Instagram smiles and toddlers, named things like Scout and Maven. Jordan stood near the grill, beer in hand, looking like he wanted to disappear into the smoke. Elaine had offered to man the grill, but Brittany had declined. "We've got it covered," she'd said, voice tight. Elaine stood by the drinks table now, wiping a ring of condensation with the hem of her sleeve, when the comment came. Brittany was mid-laugh, holding court. "We just didn't want too many leftovers, you know. Food, decorations." She gestured lazily around the yard, her hand floating right past Elaine family. A pause, then laughter tight, polite, a few scattered looks. Elaine didn't flinch. She placed the wet napkin in the trash and turned her attention to refilling the mint sprigs in the water cooler. A few of the guests avoided her eyes. Jordan scratched the back of his neck but said nothing. From the corner, Riley watched it all. She was seated at the kids' table, sketchbook in her lap, a pencil tucked behind her ear. Without a word, she got up, walked over to Elaine, and gently slipped her hand into hers. Elaine looked down and squeezed back, her knuckles pale against Riley's smaller fingers. They didn't speak. They didn't need to. Later, when the guests were gone and the balloon arch deflated onto the lawn like a surrendered flag, Elaine gathered stray napkins from beneath the hedges. Brittany and Jordan were inside, arguing quietly about the leftover quiche. The punch bowl still held 2 floating slices of lemon and 1 baby-themed ice cube. Elaine emptied it into the sink, rinsed it clean, and wrapped it in the same towel her mother once used for Sunday roasts. She moved through the kitchen silently, picking up what wasn't hers, placing what was back where it belonged. A stray pacifier, a wine glass on the windowsill, a printed schedule labeled "Baby Shower Timeline, Brittany's Big Day," with Elaine's name nowhere on it. When everything was clean, she walked out to the porch and sat beneath the wind chime Jordan made in 8th grade woodshop. Riley came out and leaned against the railing beside her. "That was a lot of pink," she said quietly. Elaine smiled. "Too much frosting, not enough cake." Riley grinned and went back inside. The evening settled like dust, soft and quiet, but full of all the things left unsaid. Elaine pulled her phone from her pocket. The screen lit up her face as she tapped out a message. "To Patrice. I think it's time." The chime above her gave a faint clang in the wind, metal striking metal with purpose. From the kitchen, laughter echoed Brittany again. Full volume, full confidence. Elaine stood. She wasn't leftovers. She was the deed. They'd just forgotten who owned the land beneath the decorations. Tomorrow they'd remember. The manila folder on Monica Price's desk was heavier than Elaine remembered. Outside, Chapel Hill breathed its quiet suburban rhythm oak leaves skittering along the courthouse sidewalk, distant dog barks echoing down cul-de-sacs. But in Monica's office, it was just law and light. Afternoon sun streamed in through the blinds, casting even bars across the folder labeled Thatcher Residency and Title. Monica looked over her reading glasses. "You're still sole owner, Elaine. No joint tenancy, No survivorship clause, no gift of equity filed. Elaine nodded once. She wasn't here for surprises, only confirmations. They were given residency, Monica continued, flipping the page. Not legal claim. You're under no obligation to continue that arrangement, especially not now. Elaine reached into her handbag and pulled out a neatly folded piece of paper, her original warranty deed from 1998, complete with the notary's faded blue stamp. I just needed to feel it again, she said, placing it next to the new file. Not the paper, the boundary. Monica gave a tight, approving smile and turned to her laptop. Let's update everything, starting with the estate plan. Elaine watched the screen glow as Monica typed. Her fingers moved fast, precise. Outside the office window, a delivery truck idled by a stop sign. Inside, a life was being rewritten. Meanwhile, Brittany was on Instagram Live, standing in front of the rose trellis in the backyard. Our forever home, she said breathily, turning sideways to show her baby bump. 4 generations deep. Can you believe? We're just so blessed. The comments rolled in. Number house goals. Wow, built-in grandma care. Manifesting this kind of generational security? Elaine didn't watch it. Patrice did. She took a screenshot, added the caption, "Delusional much?" and texted it straight to her sister. Elaine didn't reply. She didn't need to. Back at Monica's office, the final paragraph of the revised estate plan came into view on the screen. In the event of death, sole transfer of property to Jordan Thatcher is permitted only under compliance with all current residency conditions and with no spousal extension. Brittany Thatcher is to be excluded from any claim, occupancy, or inheritance tied to said property. Do you want to name an alternate heir? Monica asked gently. Elaine hesitated, then nodded. Riley, after Jordan. Good choice, Monica said. Smart kid. They moved on. The deed confirmation form was next, a quiet, legal maneuver that reasserted Elaine's full ownership with a time-stamped record at the county office. It wouldn't ring any alarms, it wasn't flashy, but if things escalated, it would hold. Monica slid it across the desk. Sign here, bottom right, Elaine signed. Then she reached for her checkbook and slid payment across with steady hands. No discounts, she said firmly. This one's worth full price. The last stop was the insurance office. Elaine sat across from a young man in khakis who looked surprised anyone still came in person. She placed her ID and homeowner's policy on the counter. I'd like to remove a name from the listed residents. Of course, he said, typing quickly. Which one? Brittany Thatcher. She doesn't reside here anymore. His eyes flicked up, questioning. She just doesn't know it yet, Elaine said calmly. By the time she walked out, the account had been updated, the notice of change set to print, and a fresh card ordered with only her name and Jordan's listed. Temporarily. She drove home with the windows down. Autumn was coming. She could smell it in the leaves. Inside the house, Brittany's voice echoed faintly from an upstairs Zoom call. Something about nursery wallpaper sponsors and affiliate links. Elaine didn't stop to listen. She walked into her study, closed the door, and placed the updated estate binder on the shelf between her cookbooks and travel journals. As she clicked the shelf light on, her phone buzzed. A group message pinged from Brittany. Brittany, momfluencer mode. House tour video dropping tomorrow. Can't wait to show everyone our roots. Number built on love, number 4 generations strong. Elaine stared at the message, then quietly replied, Elaine, make sure you get a good shot of the front door. She didn't wait for a response. Tomorrow, the locks would be next. Elaine knew something was off the moment she turned into her own driveway and spotted the unfamiliar black SUV idling near the curb. The license plates were out of state, the bumper branded with the logo of a luxury home design firm, Hearth and Beam. She parked in front of the garage and listened. Voices. Male. Confident. Inside her house. She entered through the side door, set her keys quietly in the ceramic bowl near the mudroom, and stepped into her living room only to find her dining table cleared of placemats, fruit bowl, and framed family photo. In its place, blueprints, swatches, a fabric sample hanging like an afterthought off the edge. So if we knock through this wall, you get a proper open concept flow, the man in the blazer was saying. He pointed at the plans. Then here, A built-in breakfast nook with custom shelving perfect for baby stuff. We can do the whole remodel in phases, starting with the nursery and converting the laundry room. Elaine stood silently at the entryway, not speaking yet. Brittany was seated primly at the head of the table, one manicured finger tapping her phone, the other holding a smoothie with a reusable straw. "And we'll want farmhouse trim around the new windows," she said breezily, without looking up. "Not that builder, basic stuff." Jordan was there too, arms crossed, nodding, not meeting anyone's eyes. Elaine cleared her throat. They turned. "Oh," Brittany said, like she'd caught a dog tracking mud inside. "You're early." Elaine's voice was even. "Whose budget is this under?" Brittany blinked. "We're just gathering ideas." Elaine walked forward and looked at the plans. No placeholders, no estimates. These were finalized prints, names, signatures, a logoed watermark in the bottom right corner. Jordan tried. "We figured. You know, it's kind of our place now, too?" Elaine turned to him, sharp and clear. "You figured wrong." Then she walked out, past the stunned designer, past the glossy flooring samples. She didn't slam the door. She didn't raise her voice. She just left. By the time Monica opened her office door, Elaine was already seated in the waiting chair, her hands folded over a single yellow envelope. "No appointment?" Monica asked, arching an eyebrow. "I don't have time for one," Elaine said. "I want to revoke their residency. Today." Monica didn't flinch. "Okay," she said, already turning toward her keyboard. "We'll call it a preliminary revocation. You're within your rights." Elaine handed her the envelope. "Their plans. They're drawing blueprints in a house they don't own." Monica scanned them, then nodded grimly. "Delusion has architectural drawings now. Impressive." The document was short, 4 paragraphs, precise legalese, calmly worded. The phrase, "revoked by grantor at will," appeared twice. Elaine signed without ceremony. "Do you want me to send the delivery?" Monica asked. "No," Elaine said. "I'll hand it to them when it matters most." Later that afternoon, Elaine knelt in her backyard, trimming dead basil from the herb bed with a pair of rusted kitchen scissors. Dirt softened her palms. Sunlight freckled her forearms. She didn't wear gloves. The house behind her was quiet again, the designer gone, the smoothie cups rinsed but not put away. A single swatch of ivory curtain fabric fluttered against the screen door before slipping to the floor. Footsteps approached. She looked up to find Riley, backpack still on, holding a flyer in one hand. "Hi, Grandma." Elaine smiled, genuinely. "Hi, sweetheart." Riley sat cross-legged beside her in the grass and handed over the flyer. A school art show invitation, hand-drawn in colored pencil. Below her name was the title of her piece, "Home is What You Save." "You want to come?" she asked. Elaine touched the edge of the paper like it was a pressed leaf. "I wouldn't miss it." Riley grinned and stood, brushing off her jeans. As she walked back toward the house, she paused at the door. "Grandma?" "Yes?" "Don't let them make it theirs." Elaine looked at her, really looked at her, then nodded once. "I won't." Inside the house, Brittany's voice started up again, complaining about light fixtures. Jordan replied with something noncommittal. Elaine returned to her scissors. Next week, she would begin removing what didn't belong. Not with arguments, with paper. Elaine walked the halls of her own house like it was an estate sale she hadn't approved. One hand trailed the wall, fingertips grazing surfaces that felt increasingly foreign. The framed prints had changed. Gone were the botanical watercolors she'd hung decades ago. In their place, faux, rustic typography signs. Good vibes only. Live. Laugh. Love. One simply said, "Blessed AF." She paused at that one, squinting at the crooked angle. The command felt less like a joke and more like a dare. In the front room, Brittany had swapped out Elaine's upholstered armchair for a shapeless beanbag monstrosity. The coffee table, sturdy oak piece from Elaine's late husband's woodshop days now, sat in the garage, replaced by a mirrored slab that reflected nothing but ring stains and poor decisions. Elaine pulled out her phone and began taking quiet photos. Not for Instagram, for documentation. Each item Brittany had ordered using Elaine's address came with tracking emails, discount perks, and the growing illusion of ownership. Brittany's latest Splurgia faux marble bassinet, tagged in her baby nesting must-haves, real still had the shipping label folded inside the box. Elaine snapped a close-up of the packing slip. Billing address, E. Thatcher. Credit card, Elaine's name. Rewards program, linked to Brittany's Momfluencer account. She moved room by room, quietly archiving the lie. When she reached the laundry nook just off the garage, tucked beneath the staircase, Jordan appeared behind her, holding a mug. "You know," he said gently, "Brittany was thinking, maybe we move the washer and dryer inside? Like, into the hallway closet? Easier for the baby." Elaine didn't look at him. She opened the dryer, pulled out a pair of baby leggings, and folded them with precise corners. "There's no plumbing in the hallway." "We'd get it rerouted," he said, shrugging, like it was no big deal. "It's a small change." Elaine turned to him. "You don't reroute something that was built to hold." Jordan shifted, uncomfortable. She added evenly, "Some things were meant to stay where they are." He left without arguing. That evening, Elaine sat across from Patrice at the kitchen table. The good china was in storage, but the tea tasted the same in chipped mugs. "She's trying to lay claim without saying the words," Patrice said, stirring a sugar cube into her cup. "One purchase at a time. One project at a time." Elaine nodded. "It's not just the furniture anymore. It's the structure. The way they talk about it. Move this, tear down that, as if it's already theirs." Patrice leaned back. "People forget how quickly foundations can shift, especially when you stop checking for cracks." Elaine looked at her sister, steadfast, unsentimental, granite where it counted. Then she stood. "I need a clause, one that makes misuse of property a breach of agreement." Patrice grinned. "You need Monica." At the law office, Monica read over Elaine's notes with a tight-lipped frown. "They've redecorated without consent, used your personal credit, made structural suggestions to third parties." Elaine added, "and keep speaking like they've inherited something that never changed hands." Monica's fingers danced across the keyboard. A new page appeared on the screen. Formal notice of residency conditions. Revocation terms for misuse of property. Clause 6. Violation of original structure or use shall constitute grounds for immediate review and removal. All unauthorized alterations may be subject to reversal at residence cost. Elaine read it twice. "Add emotional misrepresentation of ownership," she said, cool and clear. Monica chuckled softly, then typed. Clause 7. False portrayal of property ownership via digital or verbal channels may be presented as evidence of intent to deceive. Elaine signed. "Are we ready?" Monica asked. "Not yet," Elaine said. "But they won't be either." Back home, the house was dim. The lights dimmed too low, the music too loud upstairs. Riley's door was closed, a quiet glow beneath it. Elaine stood in the hallway for a long moment, listening to the muffled echo of Brittany's voice through the vent something about nursery themes and pastel paint palettes. Elaine looked down at her own reflection in the mirrored coffee table. The house might not look like hers anymore, but the deed did, and she had just rearmed it. The lighting was soft, filtered through Edison bulbs and filtered lenses. Brittany was seated at the head of the reclaimed wood table in Chapel Hill's trendiest bistro, her latte perfectly foamed, her lashes recently filled. She was flanked by women who dressed like motherhood was a sponsored event and spoke in hashtags even when the cameras weren't rolling. Patrice's friend, Belinda mid-60s, retired middle school principal, and famously underimpressed, was seated 2 tables away. Quiet, cardiganed, uninvited. She watched the group with the steady calm of a woman who had outlived trends. "So," Brittany said, flicking her hair over one shoulder, "we're just waiting for the paperwork to catch up. I mean, the house is basically ours at this point." A few heads tilted, impressed. 4 generations, same address, she added. "It's just legacy, you know?" Belinda took a slow sip of water and tapped record on her phone beneath the table. Elaine was in the garden when the video arrived. She was pruning back the overgrown azaleas, gloves off, sleeves rolled, when her phone buzzed in her apron pocket. From Patrice. Attachment. Voice memo. Text. "Belinda caught something you'll want to hear." Elaine stood in the shade and listened. Once, then again. By the 3rd replay, she had already removed her gloves and was heading inside. At Monica's office, the mood was colder than usual. Not angry, not even urgent. Just efficient. "Update the will," Elaine said. "Jordan may inherit the right to live there. Brittany gets nothing. No title, no tenancy, no backdoor clause. Monica raised her brows slightly, but didn't question it. Understood. Do you want to limit transfer by marriage? Elaine didn't hesitate. Add a clause. No spousal survivorship. If Jordan passes, rights terminate unless Riley's of age. Riley? Monica asked. She'll be my contingent trustee, Elaine said, voice firm. He's the bridge. She's the landing. Monica nodded, already typing. Got it. The document grew line by line. Words like irrevocable, uncontestable, grantor discretion embedded like steel beams in a concrete pour. Elaine read each clause aloud before signing, her tone measured, unshaking. Then she pressed the pen to the dotted line at the bottom. There, she said. Now the paperwork's caught up. Back home, the silence felt heavier. Not hostile, just hollow. Brittany had gone out again. Jordan was upstairs, headphones on. The dishwasher hummed with one of Elaine's settings. Not IRA. Somewhere under the noise, a bill reminder dinged on her phone. She opened the Energy app. 2 names listed. A few taps later, Brittany's was gone. She did the same with the water bill, then the internet, then trash collection. All changed. All centralized under the estate's trust name. She wasn't cutting Brittany out emotionally. She was cutting her out administratively, one login at a time. That evening, Riley wandered into the study while Elaine was filing the updated documents. Her arms were full of sketchbooks and half-used colored pencils. Grandma, she said, do you think houses know when they're being fought over? Elaine looked up, caught off guard by the softness of the question. I think houses remember who chose them, she said. Who kept them? Riley smiled, then opened her sketchbook and showed Elaine her latest piece, a drawing of their front door with roots growing from the threshold like a tree. It's called inheritance, she said shyly. Elaine looked at the sketch for a long time. The lines fine, the details careful. Put that somewhere safe, she whispered. Upstairs, Brittany posted a reel with royalty-free music and a slideshow of curated nursery progress. The caption read, Our family home is almost baby-ready. Can't wait to raise our little one where so many generations have lived. Number forever Thatcher, number next chapter. She smiled at the likes rolling in. Downstairs, Elaine opened her fireproof safe. She placed the new will inside. Next to it, the trust. Next to that, the utility records. And just beside them, a printed copy of Brittany's video transcript highlighted, time-stamped, signed and dated by a notary. Elaine shut the safe and turned the lock. She didn't need to slam the door. She had just closed the future Brittany thought she owned. Elaine walked into the Chapel Hill post office like she had hundreds of times before, holiday cards, utility payments, school photos of Riley in glossy envelopes. But this visit wasn't sentimental. It was surgical. The clerk at the counter looked barely 20 and wore chipped nail polish and a name badge that said, Rory. How can I help you today, ma'am? Elaine slid a completed form across the counter. I need a private P.O. box, registered under a trust name. Rory read the name aloud as she typed. The Thatcher Home Trust. Got it. Elaine nodded once. Make sure it's set for all legal and estate mail. Tax records, deed notifications, certified correspondence. Yes, ma'am. Want to set up mail forwarding? Elaine smiled faintly. Already done. This is just the finish line. Within 15 minutes, she held a new key in her palm. Cold brass, number 221. She turned it slowly in her fingers. Not sentimental, but satisfying. Back at the house, the mail slot clattered mid-afternoon, nothing dramatic. Just the quiet thump of envelopes hitting tile. Elaine waited a beat, then scooped up the small pile and carried it into the kitchen. A glossy envelope was missing. She could tell immediately. The county seal was always faintly embossed in the corner. She'd felt it on paper so many times she knew it by texture. Later, she'd find it rerouted safe and sound in her new box. But Brittany noticed its absence before Elaine ever had to explain it. Did we get the county valuation yet? She asked Jordan that evening, rummaging through the mail tray like it belonged to her. Jordan shrugged. Dunno. Maybe it's late? Brittany squinted. It always comes this week. Property tax projections or something. Elaine didn't glance up from her tea. Some things shift schedules. Brittany rolled her eyes and turned away. But Jordan looked at Elaine for a long moment. Not angry. Just starting to suspect. That night, Elaine stood in the study with Riley, sorting documents into labeled folders. One stack for trust administration, one for house history, one for what Patrice liked to call proactive fireproofing. Riley held a padded envelope in her hands, watching Elaine move like a woman cataloging her legacy. "Grandma, are you leaving?" Elaine paused, her hand hovering over a tab labeled Utilities Revoked. "No, sweetheart," she said, "but something's shifting." Riley didn't ask what. She just leaned over and began organizing the mail by date. Small hands, steady hands. She filed quietly, like she'd seen her grandmother do 100 times before. Elaine looked at her and felt, again, the difference between being replaced and being followed. One leaves a gap, the other lays a path. The next morning, Elaine rang Mrs. Grier's doorbell just after 9. The woman answered in house shoes and a robe, her gray hair pinned back with barrettes that sparkled faintly in the sun. "Brought your favorite," Elaine said, holding up a bag of cinnamon scones. "And what are we notarizing today?" Mrs. Grier asked, already stepping aside to let her in. Elaine handed her a single-page affidavit and a black folder stamped with her trust's seal. Confirmation of sole control for the Bonas property, for the trust, for everything Brittany likes to call hers. Mrs. Grier read silently for a moment, then nodded. "You always did know when to put your foot down." "I just waited too long to lift it," Elaine said. They completed the signature and stamp without ceremony. One final press, one last embossed seal. The ink shone wet before drying clean. Elaine slipped the page into a plastic sleeve. No copies needed. The original was enough. Back at home, Brittany was rearranging the baby gifts into rainbow order clothing by size, plush toys by texture. Her voice carried through the vent. "Once the new bills start coming in Jordan's name," she said breezily, "I think we'll finally feel like it's ours, you know?" Elaine smiled to herself as she tucked the affidavit into her briefcase. Those bills weren't coming to this house. They were headed to Box 221. Under a trust Brittany didn't even know existed. Ownership wasn't loud. It was documented, verified, routed properly. And the first letter in Elaine's name was already waiting. The letter wasn't folded. It wasn't hidden. Elaine placed it dead center on the kitchen table early that morning, neatly printed in 14-point Times New Roman, tucked under a smooth riverstone from her trip to Oregon in '07. The paper was clean, the message precise. "Please return all spare keys to my bedroom door. Elaine." Nothing dramatic. No punctuation theatrics. Just a line with weight. She left it there and made her tea. By 9 a.m., it had been moved 2 inches to the left. The stone was untouched. Elaine noted the shift and said nothing. By 10 a.m., Brittany came downstairs in her This Mama Votes sweatshirt, read the letter, and laughed aloud. "Are we doing notes now?" she called out to no one. Jordan wandered in minutes later, his mouth already open like he wanted to say something but couldn't decide which side of the conversation he belonged to. "She's not serious, right?" Brittany asked, pointing at the note. "Because I'm not handing over a key to a door that's already inside my house." Elaine walked in with her mug and glanced at the clock. "It's not yours." Brittany stared. "Excuse me." Elaine set her tea down without flinching. "The room, the door, the house, none of it's yours." Brittany turned to Jordan. "Are you really okay with this?" He looked from the note to his mother, then to the floor. I think we should just talk it through." Elaine didn't answer. By noon, the locksmith arrived. A discreet gray van, no logo. He was polite, efficient, and didn't ask questions. Elaine handed him a list. Front door, side entrance, garage keypad, and most importantly, her bedroom. "Fresh cylinders, private keys," she said. "No duplicates." By 12:45 p.m., the job was done. The house sounded different when the new locks clicked, more final, more protected. Jordan stood by the stair rail, holding the old key in his palm like it had turned into a question. He didn't speak. He just quietly pocketed it. Brittany watched from the hallway, arms crossed, her silence louder than usual. That afternoon, Elaine was in the garden again when she heard soft footsteps behind her. She turned to find Riley holding something small in both hands. Her backpack was half-zipped, a binder sticking out at an odd angle. "I found this in my pencil pouch," Riley said quietly. "I don't think I was supposed to have it." She held out a single silver key. Elaine took it gently. "Thank you, baby," Riley nodded. "Just in case." Then she knelt beside the garden bed and began weeding next to her grandmother like it was the most natural thing in the world. They didn't say much after that. The sun did the talking. The soil accepted the silence. That evening, Patrice arrived with a Ziploc bag of screws, a cordless drill, and a steel deadbolt. "No sense locking up the house if you're not locking up the room," she said, brushing dust off her jeans. Elaine held the door steady while Patrice installed it. The click of the bolt sliding into place sounded like punctuationa period. Bolded. "You're not just protecting things," Patrice said, wiping her hands. "You're marking the line." Elaine handed her a cold root beer from the fridge. The line's overdue. At Monica's office the next morning, Elaine laid out a timeline of the week letter: refusal, locksmith, Riley's return. Monica entered it all into the binder, labeled residency termination, phase 1. Locks changed. Affidavit of request delivered. Physical control reestablished, she said as she wrote. "That's all admissible." Elaine signed the confirmation and leaned back in the chair. "Next step?" Monica asked. Elaine considered that for a long, quiet breath. Then, keys were never the issue. They were just proof. Back home, the doorbell rang. A delivery baby room decals. Elaine signed for the box, brought it inside, and placed it at the base of the stairs. She didn't call out. She didn't care. Upstairs, the new lock clicked behind her as she stepped into her room and turned the deadbolt. Safe. Intentional. In control. Outside the door, Brittany's voice rose in disbelief. "Did she actually lock it? Are we playing landlord now?" Elaine opened her journal and began to write. "The door is closed. The key is mine. The story's changing. And this time, I'm writing the ending." The dining room table had been extended with the folding leaf-an attempt, perhaps, to stage civility. Brittany had set the table with printed menu cards, eucalyptus branches down the middle, and enough LED candles to suggest a holiday. Elaine had been told, pointedly, to just bring dessert. She came with 2 pies, 1 apple, 1 chocolate chess, both homemade, both labeled with tape on the aluminum lids. Her handwriting was careful but small. She placed them quietly near the end of the buffet line and stepped back. Brittany was in full performance, decorated hostess smile, linen apron over a dress too tight for comfort. "We thought dinner could be a fresh start," she announced, arms spread like she was opening a show. "Just some food, no tension, right?" Elaine didn't answer. She took her seat without a word. Jordan tried to cut the tension with small talk weather. Riley's grades, something about traffic near the university. Brittany chimed in with passive jabs. "Can you believe the electric bill jumped again? Must be all those legacy appliances." Elaine passed the salt and focused on her plate. Riley sat beside her, quiet, but present. Her sketchpad was tucked beneath the table, feet swinging softly, not quite touching the floor. They made it through salad, then pasta, then awkward, lingering bites of roasted vegetables and tension. Dessert was the final act. Brittany peeled back the foil on the chocolate pie, squinting. "What does this say?" she said, holding up the label. "Is that choke pie? Or chalk? The handwriting's kind of—" She trailed off in mock confusion, eyes scanning the room for an audience. A few polite laughs, mostly silence. Elaine looked up, fork in hand. She didn't blink. "It says chess, as in the game, as in strategy." Riley reached under the table and gave Elaine's hand a quiet squeeze. Elaine squeezed back. For a moment, the clatter of forks and the hum of Brittany's playlist filled the air. But then Elaine stood, the linen napkin folded neatly beside her plate. She picked up her wine glass knot. A toast, not a speech, just one sentence. "This is my last meal in this house, with you living in it." Jordan froze mid-bite. Brittany set her fork down too hard, clinking against the plate. "Excuse me?" Elaine didn't raise her voice. "You heard me. What the hell does that mean?" Elaine reached into her cardigan pocket and pulled out a small stack of envelopes. She placed them carefully beside each plate: Jordan's, Brittany's, and her own. "Check your mail," she said, then turned to Patrice, seated across the table. "They'll need the date stamped." Patrice reached into her purse and held up a small white receipt with a gold seal. "Sheriff's office delivers tomorrow. Certified drop-off." Jordan stood suddenly, napkin falling. Mom, can we just talk for a second privately? Elaine didn't flinch. You had months. Brittany was flush, now confused and indignant. You can't just evict us. Elaine turned slowly. I'm not evicting you. I'm revoking permission. Big difference. Silence. Outside, wind brushed the window panes. Riley reached under the table again, but this time, she passed Elaine a folded piece of notebook paper. Elaine opened it. A sketch of a house split cleanly down the middle alone, half dark and chaotic, the other calm and full of roots. At the center, a woman holding keys. It's called Exit Wound, Riley whispered. Elaine smiled and kissed the top of her head. Then she walked to the kitchen, took her half-finished pie, covered it neatly with foil, and tucked it back into her tote bag. Jordan followed her halfway, voice low. Mom, are you really doing this? Elaine looked over her shoulder, eyes steady. I already did. She opened the front door. The wind caught the edge of the eucalyptus runner, lifting it just enough to unsettle the entire table. No one moved. Elaine stepped outside and let the screen door close behind her. Tomorrow, the sheriff would bring the notice, but tonight the real departure had already happened. The sheriff's cruiser pulled up at 8:07 a.m. sharp. Civil, not sirens. Official, not aggressive. Elaine watched from the upstairs window, robe tied, coffee cooling in her hands. She didn't need to go down. She'd already signed every form, filed every affidavit, time-stamped every step. The deputy in the crisp uniform stepped out slowly, papers in hand. Brittany opened the front door with a toddler's sense of timing still in slippers, mascara smudged from the night before, an oversized hoodie that said, "Tired is my aesthetic." Jordan appeared behind her, barefoot, rubbing sleep from his eyes. The man introduced himself, calm, neutral, handed over 2 thick envelopes. Official notice of revoked permission to reside, he said. 30 days from date of delivery. Sign here for receipt. Brittany blinked. You're kidding. The deputy said nothing, just offered the clipboard. Jordan signed. Brittany didn't. She took the papers and slammed the door in his face. By 9:30 a.m., her phone was already glowing with activity. Brittany had posted a sepia-toned selfie head tilted just enough to look tragic, lip gloss catching the light. The caption read, "When betrayal comes from the people who once rocked your babies, you learn to rock your own damn world. No one can evict your spirit." Hashtags followed. Number family isn't blood. Number healing. Number rising. Elaine read it once, then turned off her phone. She had no interest in being public, only permanent. Later that afternoon, Riley knocked softly on the study door. Elaine was cataloging old tax returns, removing staples with the same focus a surgeon might give to a suture. Grandma? Elaine looked up. Riley held an empty box in her arms. Can I help pack some of the books? Elaine paused, then nodded. The blue-backed ones. Those are staying. Everything else, shelf by shelf. Riley set the box on the floor and began quietly sorting. She handled each book with care, tracing titles with her finger like they were braille. This one's yours, right? She asked, holding up a copy of Fahrenheit 451. Elaine smiled. That one's everybody's. They didn't speak much after that. Only the sound of spines brushing against cardboard. At one point, Elaine reached down and slid an art book toward Riley Georgia O'Keeffe, The Desert Years. For your next sketch, she said. Riley's smile was slow but real. At Monica's office, the printer hummed as the final document rolled out. Notarized, sealed, affixed with both their signatures. Revocation of co-occupancy rights is now on file with the county, Monica said, placing the document into a clear sleeve. If they argue, this is your backbone. Elaine nodded. And if they refuse to leave? We file for trespassing. Patrice, seated in the corner, took a sip of her ginger tea and added, and we do it with style. Elaine signed the final field in black ink. The pen didn't shake. 30 days, Monica said. But you'll know before that. I already do. That evening, Jordan lingered in the hallway outside Elaine's door. He didn't knock, just stood there. Elaine could hear the slow exhale, the half-starts, a presence without courage. She waited. Nothing came. Eventually, she heard his footsteps retreat. She turned back to her binder. Downstairs, Brittany paced in the kitchen. The eviction notice crumpled and re-flattened on the counter. She clicked open a new Instagram story. Her voice was shaky, performative. Some of you have asked how I'm holding up. It's hard, honestly. Betrayal hurts, but we are fighting back, because this house is ours, in every way that matters. She didn't mention the deed, or the trust, or the notary's seal on every page now filed with the clerk's office. Elaine stepped out onto the back porch, phone in one hand, Riley's sketch in the other. She looked at the stars, faint behind the suburban glow. Her voice was barely above a whisper. You can pretend you own a place for a while. She looked down at the mail slot, quiet now. Just air. But sooner or later, the address catches up. The lock behind her clicked softly into place. They had 30 days to clear out. She had already moved on. Not to a new house. To ownership no one could take back. Tomorrow, the countdown would begin. And the clock was hers to set. Elaine noticed the change before she even opened the door. The faint scent of lavender oil and baby powder, the telltale silence too curated, the kind that buzzed with anticipation, not peace. She pushed the guest room door open, slowly, deliberately. It was unrecognizable. Gone were the twin daybed and bookshelf. In their place, a crib painted blush pink, a faux shiplap accent wall with a decal that read, "You are our greatest adventure," and a cream-colored glider chair placed for perfect lighting during daytime feeds. Across the wall, a felt bulletin board was pinned with ultrasound photos, gift registry flyers, and Elaine's breath caught a hand-drawn sketch by Riley. A child curled up inside a heart-shaped seed. Elaine stepped inside without a word. From behind her, Brittany's voice rang out like she was narrating for a vlog. We went with sage and blush. Trendy, but timeless, you know? Elaine didn't respond. She pulled out her phone and began taking photos. Wide shots, close-ups, wall angles, the new shelving, the Amazon sticker still on the diaper pail. Jordan appeared in the doorway, rubbing his temples. Mom, this wasn't supposed to be hostile. It's just a room. For the baby. It's symbolic. Elaine turned her phone toward him as the shutter clicked. You can't undo this, he said quietly. Elaine tapped the screen. Again. I just did. Later, in Monica's office, the photos sat in a folder labeled Unauthorized Alterations, Room 4A. Monica flipped through them, nodding slowly. You're within rights to request full restoration. It's your property. No renovation was consented, no lease exists, no shared asset. Elaine's eyes didn't leave the folder. Can I have it repainted? Monica reached for her tablet. Beige, I assume? Builder beige, Elaine said. The kind that erases everything. The crew arrived 2 days later. 2 vans, 4 men, neutral uniforms, unbothered faces. They didn't ask questions. Elaine had provided exact instructions, all nursery items to be boxed and placed in the garage. No damage, no confrontation, just removal. The crayon-colored books were packed in silence. The baby monitor taken off the wall with careful, deliberate hands. The name decal peeled in one long strip and folded into a trash bag. Elaine stood in the hallway, arms crossed, watching. Jordan hovered behind her. You didn't even let her take pictures first. She already did, Elaine said. That's what the room was for. Downstairs, Brittany refused to come up. Her latest story post read, There's something deeply violent about erasing a child before they arrive. She was sitting at the kitchen island when Elaine passed by on her way to the mailbox. Elaine didn't speak. Brittany did. You've made your point. Loud and clear. Elaine didn't slow. Not loud. Legal. Before the crew packed the last box, Riley slipped quietly into the room. She moved to the bulletin board. Her sketch was still there, barely pinned. The corners curled like they knew what was coming. She pulled it down slowly, rolled it, and placed it into the art tube she carried with her now. More and more. One of the workers looked over. You want us to keep this one? Riley shook her head. Number? This one's mine. Elaine watched from the doorway, her hands behind her back, as Riley carried the drawing out like a flag that no longer needed to be raised. By sunset, the room was beige again. No decals, no soft pink, no whisper of what had tried to plant roots. Elaine stood at the doorway. She stepped inside, walked the perimeter once, then turned to the head of the crew. Good work, clean lines. He tipped his cap. Feels lighter now. Elaine nodded. That was the point. In her bedroom later that night, Elaine opened her journal. On the first line, she wrote, "They built a nursery in a house they didn't own. I reclaimed it with paint. Inheritance isn't sentiment. It's boundaries in beige." The clock beside her ticked into the next day. 23 days left, but one room had already been returned. Elaine stood at the kitchen window, the same window she'd once watched Riley chase fireflies through. The morning sun hit the counter like it remembered how to land without drama. It was day 31. They hadn't left by the deadline, but they had left. Jordan had packed 2 duffels and a laptop bag and slipped out just after sunrise. No goodbyes. His car idled in the driveway for nearly 10 minutes before it reversed down the street like he was waiting for something that never came. Brittany hadn't been so quiet. At 8:47 a.m., she exploded. A mix of indignation and desperation spilled out onto the front lawn shouts about betrayal. "Family! What kind of woman does this?" Her phone was angled up, catching tears at a flattering tilt. The neighbors peeked from blinds, some openly watching from porches. Elaine didn't flinch. She didn't engage. She simply pressed record from the living room window sound, clear, frame steady. 1 uninterrupted minute of sidewalk theatrics for legal documentation. No commentary. Just truth on video. By 10 a.m., the cleaning crew arrived. A woman named Nia led Thema no-nonsense type with latex gloves already snapped into place. "We're doing full reset?" she asked. Elaine handed over the checklist. Deep clean. All bedrooms, bathrooms, baseboards. Air vents, too. And the carpets? Scrubbed like they've never been walked on. The team went to work, each step efficient and thorough. Elaine trailed behind occasionally, pointing to overlooked shelves or forgotten corners. In the hallway, a crumpled baby sock peeked out from under the radiator. Elaine picked it up, turned it once in her palm, then dropped it into the trash bag without ceremony. By noon, the locksmith arrived. Same discreet gray van. Different technician. Full replacement, Elaine said, handing over the key packet. "No duplicates this time. 1 for me, 1 for my trustee." The locks clicked. A fresh, definitive sound. 1 door, then the next, then the garage, and finally her bedroom. Outside, the wind shifted slightly, scattering a few leaves across the freshly swept porch. Brittany was long gone. Her last shout had ended with, "This isn't over," but it had sounded more like a question. Inside, the air was still. Elaine moved room to room. No more decals, no more LED candle, or curated eucalyptus, just hardwood, framed art, quiet corners, a house unclaimed by entitlement. A house finally hers. The front door opened again around 3:30 p.m. Riley walked in with her backpack slung low, a drawing rolled under one arm. She paused in the entryway, scanning the silence. Then, "It's quiet." Elaine looked up from a stack of insurance documents. "It's mine again." Riley nodded like she understood all the parts those words carried. She kicked off her shoes and walked straight to the kitchen, pouring 2 lemonades without being asked. They sat on the back steps, drinks in hand, watching the breeze play through the herb garden. "I think I'm going to paint my room," Riley said suddenly. Elaine smiled. "What color?" "Something weird. Like gray with green undertones. Moody sage." "Appropriate," Elaine said. They clinked glasses like a quiet truce had just been honored. Later that evening, Monica sent a single-line email. Subject, occupancy compliance. Body, filed and confirmed. "You're clean." Elaine read it 3 times, then archived it. Nothing else needed to be said. No announcements, no story posts, no humble brags. Just the echo of locks turning for the right reasons. As twilight settled over Chapel Hill, Elaine lit a candle in the foyer. Vanilla cedar, nothing trendy, just a scent she loved before Brittany's hashtags took it. She opened the windows, let the day drift through the screens, and in the center of her journal, beneath the last line she'd written weeks before, she added, "You can scream ownership, but I documented mine. The house has memory. It remembered me." Tomorrow, she'd hang Riley's new sketch on the wall. But tonight, the home exhaled. And for the first time in months, Elaine did too. Elaine walked into the Mediation Center wearing navy slacks, a pressed blouse, and the composure of a woman who had nothing to apologize for. Monica walked on her left, her leather briefcase swinging like a gavel with every step. Patrice flanked the right, black sunglasses still on indoors. They weren't coordinated, but they looked like a closing team. At the front desk, a young receptionist blinked up from her screen. Name? Elaine Thatcher, Monica said. Attending by request, not by requirement. They were led to a windowless room-sterile carpet, a circular table too small for neutrality. Brittany was already there, seated with a clipboard on her lap and a tissue in one hand she hadn't yet used. Jordan sat beside her, elbows on knees, avoiding eye contact. The Mediatora woman in her 60s with short silver hair and calm eyes gestured for them to sit. Let's begin. Brittany spoke first, trembling voice, watery eyes. I just don't understand how someone who said they loved us could put us through this. The stress, the instability. I've lost sleep. Jordan's been devastated. The baby, she dabbed at her eyes now. We've experienced emotional damage. Frankly, I'd say elder neglect, too. She's isolating herself. We were trying to help. Elaine didn't blink. Patrice's face didn't move. Monica opened her folder and began to speak with clinical calm. Filed documents include sole ownership deed from 1998, revised estate plan filed the 8th of January, trust creation with non-spousal survivorship clause, formal revocation of residency dated the 1st of March, notarized key request, video documentation of harassment, full compliance with state notice period, and sheriff-certified delivery. She slid a printed timeline onto the table. Brittany looked at it like it had burned her. No physical threat. No change of address requested. No legal tenancy. No pending transfer. No standing for complaint. The mediator nodded slowly, tapping her pen once against her notepad. Any response to the documentation? Brittany looked to Jordan. He said nothing. Elaine finally spoke. They didn't want space. They wanted possession. That's when Riley's voice came in soft but clear, seated quietly behind Patrice. They just wanted her out of the picture. The mediator turned. Who are you? I'm her granddaughter, Riley said. I lived in the house too. And you feel safe now? I feel like I got my grandmother back. Silence filled the room like an arriving tide. The mediator sat back in her chair and closed the folder in front of her. This is not a mediation. There's no conflict to resolve. The property owner has legal standing. The complainants do not. She stood. This hearing is concluded. Brittany's mouth fell open. Wait, what? You're not even going to let us? No standing, the mediator repeated, walking toward the door. And no jurisdiction for sentiment. Monica stood smoothly, tucking her files away. Elaine buttoned her jacket. Patrice offered a small smile that didn't quite reach polite. They left Brittany mid-sputter. Jordan didn't follow. An hour later, they sat at a corner table in Finch and Thistle Bakery, a little spot Elaine had loved before Brittany had ever tried to reinvent the neighborhood. 3 plates, warm almond croissants. Patrice poured tea from the pot and passed sugar without needing to ask. Well, she said, that was satisfying. Elaine took a slow sip, then looked at Monica. You were surgical. Monica cracked a rare smile. Precision is the only cure for delusion. Elaine reached into her purse and pulled out Riley's newest sketch-an outline of the house, now surrounded by open space. No chaos, just grounded walls. She laid it flat on the table. I think this one gets framed. Outside, Chapel Hill moved in its usual rhythm college kids with earbuds, a dog tied to a lamppost, wind brushing the awning like nothing extraordinary had just occurred. But inside that bakery, Elaine wasn't just celebrating a legal win. She was reclaiming something quieter. Her name, her boundaries, her space. Tomorrow, she would walk through her house without watching her back. And tonight, for the first time in years, she would sleep behind a door she'd locked by choice, not fear. Across the table, Patrice raised her cup. To the woman who didn't just keep the house, she said, but cleared it. Elaine lifted hers in reply. To closure. Elaine sat at Monica's conference table with the steady posture of someone signing not just papers but permanence. The sunlight slanted across the wood in long strips, illuminating 2 thick binders and 1 thin folder with a gold-embossed seal. The Thatcher Living Trust. This is the last step, Monica said, sliding over the signature page. Living Trust, Riley as sole beneficiary. All assets pass Kleno probate. No contestation. Elaine nodded once, then reached for the pen. No spouse succession? Locked, Monica confirmed. Jordan inherits residency if alive and in good standing. No partner or spouse receives access by proximity. Brittany is disqualified in every clause. Elaine paused, pen hovering. Then, add a secondary line. Monica lifted an eyebrow. What kind? Elaine's voice was even. If Riley declines, the house goes to Chapel Hill Community Arts. Patrice, seated across from them with a knit scarf in progress, glanced up. You giving the house to the arts if Riley passes? Elaine met her gaze. If it's not going to stay personal, it's going to serve the public. But not Brittany. Not ever. She signed, slowly, clearly, with full pressure from her hand. Monica sealed the document in a sleeve, then passed over a final copy. Elaine slid it into her briefcase. It's done. That evening, the email came. Subject line. None. From Jordan Thatcher. Message. You didn't have to cut her out. Elaine stared at it for a moment, the cursor blinking in the empty reply box. Then she began typing. She cut herself out. I just signed it. No greeting. No sign-off. No apology. She hit send. In the morning, Elaine sat on the porch steps with a mug of black tea. Patrice joined her in silence, settling beside her with the ease of long friendship. She'll find another house, Patrice said after a while, gaze fixed on the breeze moving through the pine. You didn't ruin her life. You just reclaimed yours. Elaine smiled faintly. That's the part people never believe. They think keeping your boundary means ruining theirs. And sometimes, Patrice added, they confuse invitation with inheritance. They sat without speaking after that. A soft kind of victory hummed between them. No parades, no applause, just clarity. Inside, Riley sat at the dining table with a ruler, an eraser, and a fresh piece of watercolor paper. The sketch was different from her earlier ones. This one wasn't metaphor. It was memory. The house from the front, clean lines, deep porch, the faint shadow of a woman in the upstairs window. The mailbox read Thatcher in careful block letters, and beneath it, in pencil so soft it was almost missed. But hers. Riley shaded in the shadows beneath the rose bushes, then flipped her sketchbook closed and tucked it into her portfolio case. College review next month, she said aloud, not to anyone in particular. This one's going in. Elaine, passing through the hallway, caught the corner of the drawing before Riley zipped it up. She didn't ask to see it fully. She didn't need to. The signature in the bottom right corner was enough. R. Thatcher, 2025. That night, Elaine walked through the house again. Not checking, not guarding, just remembering. The echo of her husband's boots near the workbench, Riley's school shoes by the mudroom, the birthday banner Patrice had taped up crookedly last fall. She paused in front of the mirror in the entryway, the one Brittany had tried to replace with something lighter, more modern. She looked at her reflection. Older, sharper, still here. Then she opened her journal and wrote 3 lines. I named the next owner. I rewrote the future. This house will not forget me. She closed the book. Outside, the wind was picking up cooler now, shifting toward something new. Inside, every lock turned quietly, just once. Final. And in the study, filed between 2 thick folders and 1 sketch portfolio, the next deed wait untouched, undisputed, and entirely hers. The house smelled like cinnamon and cardamom, soft and warm and honest, none of it from a diffuser. Patrice's coffee cake had just come out of the oven, and the cooling rack beside it held a tray of lemon bars Riley had dusted with powdered sugar herself. The dining table, once set for battles of inheritance and forced family meals, now held second-hand poetry books and donation envelopes with a hand-lettered sign, Support the Chapel Hill Youth Library Fund. Elaine walked through her home slowly, a fresh bouquet tucked into a mason jar in her arms, placing it just beneath the window where Riley had always sketched. There were folding chairs in the living room, Mrs. Greer in one of them, tissue already balled in her hand. Monica sat nearby, blazer still on, but eyes soft. A few neighbors had trickled in, curious, supportive, but more importantly, invited. Riley stood in front of the fireplace, wearing a gray dress flecked with green threads that caught the light just enough. She was taller this year. Her voice was steadier, too. People talk about legacy like it's something you inherit, she began, one palm resting lightly on her sketchbook. But I think legacy is made by who watches you draw your first line and says, keep going. Elaine stood just inside the archway, hands clasped, listening. Art doesn't always hang in galleries, Riley continued. Sometimes it's in how someone keeps a house, fights for it, leaves space for you in it quietly, without asking for applause. Patrice nodded proudly from her chair, mouthing, "That's my niece." "I'm honored to grow in this home," Riley finished, "and to give back to the spaces that let us start small." Applause rippled, polite but sincere. Monica dabbed her eyes with a napkin. Elaine stepped forward as the room settled again. In her hands, a small wooden box. She opened it and held out a single brass key on a velvet ribbon. "Not just to the front door," Elaine said softly. "To the trust, to everything I've been guarding for decades. It's yours now, Riley, whenever you're ready." Riley took the key like it was made of something heavier than metal. She looked at her grandmother, then tucked it into the small side pocket of her sketch satchel. "Not yet," she said quietly. "But soon." Elaine smiled. "There's no rush. Doors wait." After most of the guests had gone, Patrice carried empty platters back to the kitchen and clinked dishes in the sink, while Monica gathered donation slips into neat stacks. Mrs. Greer hugged Elaine at the door and whispered, "This was better than any baby shower I've ever been to." Elaine laughed. "Fewer pink balloons. More purpose. More backbone, too," Mrs. Greer added, then kissed her cheek. On the porch steps, two neighbors lingered. Mr. Bowers from next door, holding a paper cup of punch, and Denise from the HOA, who had always been more curious than kind. Denise tilted her head. "You seem different, Elaine. Lighter." Elaine didn't rush her answer. She looked out at her garden trimmed, alive, entirely hers again. "I feel present," she said simply. "Finally." They nodded, not sure how to respond, and wandered down the walk. That night, Elaine stood in the foyer, arms crossed, watching Riley pin a new sketch above the hall light switch. It was a small drawing, just the corner of the porch, a mason jar on the windowsill. The title, scrawled below in faint pencil, "Not borrowed, built." Elaine kissed the top of Riley's head. "You're going to do big things." "I already am," Riley said, then grinned. "Just in pencil first." Elaine laughed, long and soft. Later, after Riley had gone to bed and the lights were dimmed, Elaine opened her journal one last time that evening. "Today I passed the key, not out of duty, but readiness." The house wasn't just hers anymore. It was theirs, and it had never felt more at home. Tomorrow, Brittany would post another story, but tonight, the story that mattered lived here, in brick, in breath, in blood that remembered where it began. The morning air had a faint citrus edge to it. July in Chapel Hill always flirted with humidity, but hadn't yet committed. Elaine sat alone in the backyard with her tea, the same blue-glazed mug she'd used since Riley was born. The house behind her stood still, resolute, sun cutting diagonals through the kitchen windows. No raised voices, no staged photos, just walls that had stopped bracing. On her lap sat the fireproof document box, open, waiting. Elaine unfolded the last deed thicker paper than standard. Crisp edges and slid it into the sleeve marked Final Transfer. Trust Beneficiary, R. Thatcher. Her fingers paused over the embossed notary seal. Then she closed the box, twisted the lock, and pushed it gently beneath the bench. She didn't need to watch it anymore. It would watch over them. Riley came out 10 minutes later, barefoot, a small stack of college brochures clutched in one arm and an apple half-eaten in the other. "Guess what?" she said. Rizd replied. Elaine raised an eyebrow. "That fast? They want an interview. Virtual. But they said my portfolio felt deliberate." Riley made air quotes with the apple. "Whatever that means." Elaine smiled. "It means they saw what you meant to say." Riley sat beside her, tucking one leg under the other. When I Gowhat happens to the house?" Elaine looked over, her face unreadable for a moment. "Take it with you," she said softly. "Not just in paperwork, in posture, in how you let people in and how you don't." She sipped her tea, then added, "It's yours in every way they assumed it'd be theirs. The difference is, you earned it without asking." Riley was quiet for a long time. Then she leaned her head on Elaine's shoulder. Will it be weird? Me not here? Elaine tilted her head gently against Riley's. It'll be quieter, but not empty. They stayed like that for a while, the breeze lifting the corners of Riley's brochures. Later, they walked the property line together. It was something Elaine hadn't done since her husband passed surveying it, not as a fortress, but a garden. They passed the side yard where Riley once built a cardboard rocket, the patch of rosemary Patrice had planted in an act of suburban rebellion, the tree Brittany tried to trim for curb appeal, which now stretched defiantly toward the power lines. This yard's lopsided, Riley said, smiling. Elaine smirked. Like the best things. As they turned the last corner back toward the porch, Riley stopped suddenly. Wait. She jogged inside and returned with a small plaque wrapped in tissue. I found this at the print shop downtown. Couldn't not. Elaine watched as Riley peeled away the paper and nailed it just above the living room light switch. Black enamel, simple serif font. Occupied by truth. Elaine blinked once, then touched the edge of the plaque like it might dissolve. It didn't. That night, as the house creaked through its nightly exhale, Elaine opened her journal one last time. She'd been writing for months. Some entries were only 3 lines. Others ran pages. But this one didn't require embellishment. She wrote, "They called me leftover. I kept the part that couldn't be thrown out. The deed." She closed the book, turned off the lamp, and let the silence settle around her. Outside, the wind moved through the trees. Inside, nothing stirred. And at the base of the stairs, a key sat in a ceramic dish waiting. Not because someone had forgotten it, because someone had finally earned it.